Good morning. Welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am Pastor Joe Fox. So, Britain has voted to leave the European Union. That's what we're going to talk about today. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a couple things you may wish to consider, steps you may wish to take in the next 24 to 72 hours. So that's where we're going today. Britain leaving the EU, Brexit, right? First of all, I'm happy. Secondly, I'm shocked. So let's get to that. I'm a nationalist, right? I've always been a nationalist. You know, Vietnam for Vietnamese, Germany for Germans, America for Americans. I think people have a right to their own way of life, to their own culture that they've created, and I think that's worth protecting. And I don't think they should necessarily try to export it to other places, which is another video for another time. But you know, when you create, when you take something like Europe and you take Germany, which has a rich culture, and France, which has a rich culture, and Britain, which has a rich culture, which is intertwined and very different, and then all the other countries, and cram them together and say we're going to make this economic thing, and oh by the way we're going to open our borders, and oh by the way we're going to do this, and now we're starting to talk about an EU military force, and da 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 da. You just start melting all the edges off of all the different nations, literally. And so I never thought that was a good thing. And so when Britons decided to stand up and be Britons and say heck no, we're out of here, that made me happy from a nationalist perspective. From another perspective, the globalists, right, the elites who are basically running roughshod over the world, you know, the rich people out there really don't consider themselves Americans or Germans or Swiss or French or Chinese or whatever. They consider themselves members of this illuminated elite who knows better than these little minions out there. And so I kind of resent that. I don't like being told what to do by people who don't really care about me. And seeing this globalist thing start falling apart makes me happy. More on that later. But yeah, it's shocked, I think, the globalist elite. Certainly the markets are taking a hammering right now. You know, Dow's down, everything's down. Gold's up, silver's up, boom, boom, boom. Again, I'm not the financial guy. There are many out there who are probably doing better financial videos on this than I am, and I encourage you to watch them. And then, you know, another aspect why I'm happy to see it fall apart. Most of y'all, I think most, are readers of the book, right, the Bible. And we have a certain eschatology, and we can kind of see how the world's going to go. We can certainly see the New World Order in the Bible, if you read it correctly, run by a global elite, right? With one super bad guy at the top. And so I always saw the European Union as a big piece of that. You know, let's form all these separate, strong sometimes countries together and make it one. We'll have a Western Hemisphere one, we'll have an Asia one, and we'll crunch them all together. But New World Order, right? I think that's what's behind the recent opening up of all the borders, our borders, Canada's borders, all of Europe's borders to these non-locals. Things be changing, and whenever there's change like that, there's resistance. I mean, look at the white folk coming to North and South America. The Indians resisted them in a bad way. They were never united. They never, you know, fought correctly against this European force, and quite frankly, they were unequipped to deal with it. And so they lost. And then look at the difference in the way of life now. You know, there's no more Indian culture to speak of in, let's just take North America. There really isn't any Indian culture anymore. Not anything like it was. Not when they're wearing feathers from China dyed bright red and bright blue on their powwows. I mean, come on. Another topic for another time. I know hate mail's coming. But things change when you have masses of people pouring into a country, and if you don't address that and kick them back out, repel borders. And so things were changing, and now resistance is happening. Supposedly, the reason most Britons who voted to exit was because of the immigration. And have you been to London lately? I have. and it doesn't look like you think, like I thought of London. You know, I picture London, you know, a bunch of stodgy white people, you know, going to pubs and walking around with umbrellas. Not that. They call it Londistan for a reason. Another video for another time. So anyway, culture. It's a culture war, right? But I was happy to see the elites take one on the nose. And I was happy to see, and which is why I was shocked to see, quite frankly, the Brexit vote work, because I really did see the EU as part of this building block for what's coming. Now, maybe it still is. Maybe this is part of some grand plan where we're going to create, and this is what I was talking about earlier, order out of chaos, because a lot of the globalists have big companies, corporations, headquarters, you know, offices in Britain through which they do business in the European Union, right? Because it's like one big country economically. And so they all said, hey, we're going to punish Britain if they vote to Brexit. It was a threat. I believe they are going to enact that threat. I believe they're going to act on it because you've got countries like Denmark and France who are saying, hey, yeah, you know, we ought to have a Brexit too. It won't be long before the real Germans rise up and say the same thing. And so that could threaten to break up the whole EU. So I think they are going to hammer Britain economically. Well, that's going to affect everybody, you know. It's going to certainly affect the U.S. Ripples are going to go all the way out to Zimbabwe, you know. And so times are going to be hard, and then I think that it'll be like, yes, see what happens when that happens? Everybody suffers. And so we got to stay together and be strong, you know, to kind of, and we have to enact even more legislation and more draconian measures. So that could be a plan. I bet you it's certainly a plan on the drawing board right now. If it wasn't an original plan, it's like, hey, how do we make something good out of this mess? And so there could be some financial chaos coming soon. I'll get to that in the end. Another thing is war. You know, war is used for a couple reasons, but two reasons war is really used, and used is a great word, which is why I personally no longer recommend people join the military, even though I had a great career and I liked it and had fun with it. But war is used, one, to make the people of a nation that's going to war focus not internally, not at the leaders of that nation, but focus on a common foe, a common enemy. We're all united to fight the Reds, or those dirty Jews, we got to get them out of our country, or whatever. It takes people's minds off of the misery they're personally in, on their own leadership, and it focuses on an other, right? It's worked forever that way. It helps consolidate leadership. It helps them pass laws or enact not necessarily legislation, because warlords do it too, but enact rules and ways that are harsh because we have to buckle down to fight the enemy. That's one thing. War is also really good for the economy, you know, for those global elites. It just is. They sell to both sides. They sell to all four sides, you know, of conflicts. And if you read the news, and I'm sure you do, man, there's a lot of talk, war drums being beaten about us and Russia, us and China. Personally, I think we should have went to war with China about 15 years ago and just smacked them down several decades down. It's getting to be about too late for that. I think that's for a reason too. Russia, I got no problem with Russia, but we want a war with Russia. It's clear we want a war with Russia. We keep poking them. You know, I, Pastor Joe Fox, am not a threat to you, whoever you are sitting there watching this YouTube video. You have nothing to fear from me. But if you come over here and start poking me, you're going to have a problem, right? I mean, it's just the nature of things, and that's what we're doing to Russia. I think we're doing that because we want a war. I think we want a war for the reasons I said, to unite the people against the common enemy and to help the economy. Just that. And oil's in there too. So these kinds of things have a way of happening quickly. You know that game, I think it's called Jenga. It's like all the little pieces of wood, and you got to pull one out, pull one out, pull one out, until finally the whole thing falls down. We know, right? We know that this economic world system is fragile, fragile, fragile. And, you know, smarter people than me will talk about black swans. and how that has the ability, the potential to just create huge disturbances in the force. This Brexit vote could be one of them. Things could go sideways quickly. So, is that everything I wanted to say about Brexit from that standpoint? I think it is. Yay, Britain. Britain for Britons. Get out of the EU. I'm glad for you. Cameron's resigning. What's going to come from that? You know, who knows? I'm surprised that the elites let it happen, on the one hand. I think half of the elites, see, I don't think the elites are united. I think a lot of them are surprised it happened, too. I'm surprised they didn't cheat and skew it the way they want it to go. But again, maybe they're smarter than me, you think? Maybe this is a plan to create order out of chaos and the phoenix out of the ashes and, you know, that kind of thing. So, there's that. That's kind of Pastor Joe's summary on what happened. Now, what can you do? And what does it mean to you? What it means to you when I was talking about that game or a house of cards that could come down quickly is this could be one of the triggers, the trigger, that makes the whole thing go crazy. Boom! You know, you wake up tomorrow or Monday at war with Russia and no ATMs are working. Could. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But it could. It's like certainly a possibility that wasn't there 3 days ago. And so I would encourage y'all to follow my example. I'm going to top off my cars. You know, they're all pretty full already, but I'm going to top them off today. I have a couple empty gas cans. Going to fill them up. My food is good. I don't need anything else. I'll check my propane. I think I have an empty propane bottle in the kitchen. I'll get that filled today. Just top off. Don't go crazy. Don't go run up your credit card or anything dumb like that, but make sure that, oh yeah, I was going to buy one of those, or I was going to, get another case of green beans, or, something like that. If you were going to do it anyway, you might want to do it soon, before Monday. You could wake up Monday and all the markets could be crazy or something. And again, go watch the financial guys and see more information on that. But top off, watch the news. Even CNN, Fox, whatever, that just garbage that they try and pump into your head. At least if big things start happening, of course they're going to put their spin on it, but you'll know something's happening. And I would encourage you to check alternate news sources. You have the internet. You can get to local newspapers in Zimbabwe. I talked about Zimbabwe. I bet you can get the local newspaper in Zimbabwe on your internet. I would be checking a lot of European news. I would be checking Chinese news, although that's so heavily propagandized. All of Asian news is really. India news. Check some India news. Certainly check RT or whatever. They all have a slant, they all have an agenda, but if you look at enough of them, you can kind of get a feel for what's going on, and it might give you a little bit of heads up. Start thinking, again, use this as an opportunity to do that. What would you do if you woke up Monday and there's no banks open? They're not going to be open, and there's a run on the grocery stores and the Walmart, so within 24 hours there's nothing on the shelves, and your credit card's not working. What would you do? If there's something you wish you'd done 2 days prior to that, you might want to consider doing that. Do I think it's going to be chaos on Monday? I do not. Do I think it could be chaos on Monday? I do. Sorry, no easy solutions. You should be living, we should be living in these days at a steady state of preparation anyway. We should be ready at any second for chaos to happen. Everything that I'm telling you to do are just kind of nice to haves, but you should be ready 24 hours a day for things to go because they can go that fast. And I think when it happens, it will go very quickly. So stay tuned to the news. Keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the world. Top off your supplies. Watch it. And, hey, strap in. We might be in for an interesting ride. All right. I'll see you out there.